Coming out during the peak of Total Drama Island's popularity, Stoked was a cartoon about a group of surfers who work at a beach resort in British Columbia as they try not to let their job interfere with their surfing. It was a really cool show, and one of the first things you may notice is like, this water looks amazing. I don't know, I kinda wanna drink it. I swear this show made me wanna take up surfing as a kid. Like, they make it look amazing and so fun, and they really do it justice within the show. Some people may be kinda turned off by the puppeted style of the Fresh TV shows, like how Total Drama characters especially are somehow always looking sideways and towards the camera, but I think the characters look great, and the animation takes a huge step up here from its predecessors of 16 and Total Drama. Releasing in the summer of 2009, just 6 months after the release of Total Drama Action in Canada, it's kind of amazing how Fresh TV was making all of these shows within the same time frame. And these new episodes were something I really looked forward to in the summertime in the US, because Cartoon Network would wait until the summer to air all the new episodes of Total Drama, Stoked, and 16, back to back to back. So if you didn't like Fresh TV shows, you were out of luck on Thursdays. Like, look at this schedule. It brings a tear to my eyes. Even you, Johnny Test, get in there. The show kind of returns more to the form of 16, being a comedy with a loose overarching plot, which is mainly in the form of the relationships of these characters, but we see the progression of the surfing a bit too, mostly in one of the main characters, Emma, who's never really surfed before, but has always loved it ever since watching a surfing movie with her brothers. A lot of the characters can be compared to the cast of 16, which I guess I would say isn't a bad thing, but I don't think most of them offer much we haven't seen before. We got the spoiled gal Lo, whose father owns the resort and is making her work here as punishment for throwing a crazy party, kinda like Caitlin from 16. We got the chill dude Broseph, who really captures the vibes of the nonchalant surfer, kinda like Jude, but riding a board isn't that unique here. Reef and Finn are simultaneously the best and worst characters of the show. They have this very on and off relationship, though I guess they're never officially on as a couple. They have a fun rivalry when they're competing over surfing, because you never really know who's the strongest surfer between the two of them, and a couple that trash talks each other and stuff is pretty fun. We do kind of see who the strongest surfers are though in the final competition of the show, Gromfest, as we'll cover later. And then we got Johnny, aka Johnny Front Desk Guy, and I really like his design, wearing the wetsuit while surfing. Like, it's ingenious the way you can kind of tell he's a bit more timid than the others, just from his outfit. So I want to cover the first few episodes of the show, skip around to some favorites in the middle, go over some major plot lines, and talk about the ending, because Stoked is such a great summertime show, and I wanted to share it with you in case you haven't seen it before. It'll be a fun time, so let's just dive right in. Now, jumping right into the first episode, I immediately get whiplashed by Dear Maria playing.
I got your picture, I'm coming with you, dear Maria, come in.
It really catches me off guard every time, but there's a pretty elaborate list of real music used all throughout the show, which is pretty impressive. I haven't heard a lot of the songs before, but the few I do recognize, like You and I by Ann Arbor, is a banger. The surfers show up to the boardwalk, where we learn Surfers Paradise Resort isn't exactly a cool resort for surfers, but a really cheesy tourist spot. We see a tour bus pull up with his big dancing killer whale mascot, named Wipeout.
You know, there's room in here for two.
Nah, that's crazy. On top of being a bit corny, the hotel's a bit of a mess because Lo, the hotel owner's daughter, held a crazy party in the penthouse of the resort. Like, we see Broseph drove her Jeep through the pool. We meet Andrew Baumer, or Bummer, the manager of the crew, and he's an interesting character. They do a great job showing off his character right away, making a deal with some frustrated guests who are really annoying, and we see these specific guests all throughout the show, but I'll cover them more later. After he deals with them, he's really nice to the new summer crew, but upon learning they're not guests of the hotel, but the new employees, yells at them for standing around and laying on the couch that was just cleaned. He reminds me a lot of Benson from Regular Show, an angry boss that occasionally does show he cares, but needs to maintain order. But Bummer doesn't have nearly as many redeemable moments, and Benson never paid his staff in peanuts. Like, that's crazy. So we quickly learn that working at the resort is anything but paradise, as they're just scrubbing the aftermath of Lo's party. I do appreciate that the job isn't too fun, because watching a show about all of these surfer friends living at the beach made me jealous enough. If their jobs were perfect, I'd probably just hate all of them out of jealousy. Emma works in the dining room, which is this big pirate ship, and she dresses like a wench, and her boss Kelly is easily the most hateable character in the whole show. She doesn't even surf. Reef is the head of surf instruction, which was going to be Finn's job initially, thus starting the rivalry between these two.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, you're the new maid.
I'm a 3-time junior international champion. I'm ranked number 56 in the world.
Yeah, in the girls category.
Face Reef. I think they really set up Reef's sexism to be something he'd grow out of further throughout the show, because a couple that's rivals on the waves is such a fun concept. But I don't know, Reef never really learns, and a lot of people dislike Finn for being a bit too feminist and the voice of social commentary, but I'd say she's my favorite character in the show. But then again, Jen's my favorite character in 16, and I'd say Finn's probably a cross between Jen and Nikki. If you've watched 16, you can probably assume Reef's a lot like Jonesy, but I don't know, Reef doesn't have nearly as many redeemable qualities as Jonesy. Sure, he wasn't the smartest, and he was lazy and a bit sleazy, but it always felt like he had some kind of plan up his sleeve. You could root for him. Reef's main personality traits are that he's vain and stupid and is a bit of a typical jock, but I think at first they play him up to be a little bit of a poser who isn't as macho as he pretends to be, as we'll see. After a long day of cleaning, we see the staff dorm the surfers stay in this summer, the rundown former surf resort. Despite having direct access to the beach, we see this dorm's falling apart and infested with roaches and skunks, but despite this, it's a really fun location that feels super real and livable. So right away, we have two great locations of the surf resort and the surfers dorm. The episode ends with the crew finally being able to surf, as we learn Emma's never surfed before, but right as they grab their boards, Bomber makes an announcement for all the staff to report in the next 20 seconds or they'll be fired, as we see the crew frantically running towards the resort, with Wipeout waddling out of the bathroom with toilet paper still stuck to his fin. So overall, it's a great first episode, and really every time I rewatch Stoked, the first few episodes always feel magical to me, and make me think, wow, why do I like 16 more? And a lot of this initial whimsy is definitely from the amazing setting of Stoked. Like, the mall is cool and all, but I never really thought I want to go to this mall. I thought I want to hang with these friends. With the Stoked, I kind of feel the opposite, like, wow, I want to work and surf at this resort, but not really as much of a, wow, I want to hang with this crew. Episode 2 starts with Lo continuing to try to clean the pet house before her father comes back from his trip, and I love this clip of a random partier that's been stuck in the table, presumably for like half a day. We see the whole crew struggles with their new jobs, like Broseph just being a really careless bellhop, Emma tripping with stacks of plates in the kitchen, and Finn cleaning just nasty rooms. Speaking of nasty rooms, I feel like now is a good time to make a quick detour about the show's stance on personal hygiene. There's a whole episode about Broseph moving out of the staff house because he smells so bad and uses Johnny's toothbrush and Reef's board shorts, eventually moving out and becoming homeless before making and living in a giant sandcastle on the beach. And like, the show makes a whole song and dance out of this, like I'm supposed to feel bad for Broseph, but I'm just like, nah, you need a shower, man. The episode even ends with Reef and Johnny catering to Broseph because they missed him, which is crazy, but it at least does a good job of showing us how good friends the guys are and what Broseph brings to the friend group with his fun and pranks and stuff. And then there's episode 10, where Finn finds a room so disgusting she takes photos and posts it on a new website she made dedicated to messy rooms in the hotel. Later she meets this chivalrous dude named Mitchell, who she actually has really good chemistry with, until we learn that the notorious room 303 belongs to him. Finn forgets her phone in his room, and when she comes back to get it, it's suddenly clean now, and he says everyone knows he's a slob, and that if someone makes a mess, she should tell them instead of posting it online. But like, there's so many weird components to this plot. It seems like Finn straight up docks this dude, like how do people know it's his room at a random resort? It's such an extreme angle to take to try and justify his position of just destroying this room in an awful way, but the episode does a good job giving this push and pull of a guy who seems all but perfect, except for this huge flaw. But we never really get to see what they'd be like, because in the end, he breaks up with her and posts his embarrassing Google a video of her from their date. So going back to episode 2 after this hygiene detour, we meet Lo's family, her older brother Ty, who Emma has a crush on throughout the show, Emma's mom, who reminds me a lot of the mom from Mean Girls, and she says she can make her famous room service buffet, which has always stuck with me and I don't know why. Like, the idea of repurposing room service into a whole new dish is so funny to me. Lo's dad, Ridgemount, is an extremely successful businessman and hotel owner, and he's a really angry, intimidating man who we never see the face of. When he learned about Lo's crazy party, he tells her she needs to learn the value of $1 and responsibility, and she's moving into the staff dorm to work at the resort until she's learned her lesson. A big plot point of the show is Lo trying to prove she's learned her lesson and can go back to the penthouse, but the plans always go awry somehow. Emma cries because a skunk sprays her bed, and she feels she doesn't belong, especially because she can't surf, but we have a sweet moment where Broseph teaches her how to surf, and we get a montage of Emma learning while nearly killing Broseph in the process. The scene looks amazing. Like, not only does the water look great, but the lighting is fantastic too. I think we see every time of day and every type of weather throughout the show, even a hurricane, which is maybe the best looking episode of the whole series. It's a great concept for this episode to have the lowest of the lows with everyone really struggling with their jobs, and it's at this darkest point we learn a staff member gets fired at the start of every summer, which is crazy to have someone fly out for the summer job just to fire them. Hashtag waste their time 2009. While Emma had the lowest scores of everyone, we see the first signs Johnny has a crush on her and goes through the computer changing the evaluation scores to get this mean gal Martha fired instead of Emma. People might find Johnny and his simping over Emma kind of annoying, but I think the show actually does a really good job of not dragging it out and making it too emotional to the point where people would find it overly creepy or annoying. The episode ends with a bonfire on the beach of this new set of friends, including Lo, and they make a toast that perfectly encapsulates what Stoked's all about.
Maybe our jobs kind of stink.
And our boss is a total dork.
Yeah, but the waves are awesome and the beach is beautiful. And this summer is seriously gonna be fun. To Surfer's Paradise!
You might think it'll be smooth sailing or surfing after this, but the next episode has the new employees being hazed by the senior staff for their Grom initiations in order to get access to this legendary secret surf spot called The Office. And I don't know how secret this spot can be if Emma, a gal who's never surfed before, knows of it. But regardless, we learn more about the senior staff besides Emma's boss Kelly, like Ripper, this Australian guy who I presume is called Ripper because he rips ass. And I hate that term, but I had to use it here, you know? Johnny's also part of the senior staff, but as we know, he's a little nicer and more timid than the others, so throughout the episode he pretends he's hazing Broseph while letting him off the hook.
Where's young Broseph?
Yeah, he's not gonna want to continue living after today for real.
Nice. One less grommet on my way.
Oh my gosh. So they pass all their Grom initiations, like trying to surf while covered in petroleum jelly, and their final hazing challenge is to find this keychain thrown in the dumpster, and this ends up being a deal breaker for the crew. But in a surprising twist, Lo ends up being the one to motivate everyone to endure this last challenge and surf this amazing spot. Like, in the span of an episode, Lo's gone from bossing the staff around to dumpster diving. You gotta admire her commitment. There's some other fun locations in the show, like there's a little town with a movie theater and a beaver tail shop, and I always thought beaver tails were made up for the show, like a play on the dessert bear claws. But no, they're a real chain throughout Canada, specializing in these fried dough pastries that look like beaver tails. And I really debated delaying this video and driving 5 hours to the closest beaver tails restaurant, but I think that's a little overboard. But if you like and subscribe, maybe I'll have enough subscribers someday where I can make a traveling to every beaver tail throughout Canada video. Episode 5 is one of my favorites of the series, in which Reef uses cheesy pickup lines on a girl he teaches how to surf. So Finn gets the kahuna to change the movie for movie night to the one Reef stole his lines from, and as you may be realizing, Finn's obsession with Reef, even though it seems to be out of disgust, is probably because she likes him. Though she says it's because girls everywhere deserve better than the cheesy pickup lines from guys. And I can see why someone finds her annoying, but I do find this aspect to her character character interesting, and I think it's cool to have a character who's a brash tomboy and a feminist. And I believe there are times like this where she claims she's sabotaging Reef for the sake of woman, as opposed to being vulnerable and saying it's because she likes him, which I think is actually pretty compelling. I love the little town because it reminds me a lot of taking a bus into towns when going to sports camps and stuff growing up, so it definitely gave me a bit of nostalgia, but I also love that the Kahuna accepts literally anything for payment. Like, Johnny gives him a computer mouse, and Broseph gives him a squirrel glued to a log. On top of this, the gal stole dresses from a random guest room to wear to the movies that night, and they actually turn out to be from Reef's date, so they have to run back and sneak the dresses back in and out of her room, Mission Impossible style. There's a subplot of these hotel guests that have just absolutely awful kids that terrorize the staff throughout the episode, and you can clearly tell this show came out before the invention of the iPad. It ends with Johnny snapping at the parents and standing up for Emma, who the kids also were harassing, and this is my favorite Bomber moment in the whole show. He whispers a thanks to Johnny for doing this, while pretending to yell at him and give him a strike to appease the guests, before kissing up to them. It really portrays Bomber as a manager that, despite being pretty strict and dorky, is actually kinda chill deep down, and has to endure a lot from guests on a daily basis. Also, I swear these guests said they were American at some point, but I cannot find where they said this. I only wrote down and included this specific scene.
Ow! I was scooting like a doofus and nobody stopped me! I'm gonna sue!
Okay, yeah, so they're definitely American. It is pretty funny, because as you probably know, all these Fresh TV shows were made and take place in Canada, but Stoked actually feels the most Canadian to me, or at least has the most references to the world of Canada, like Finn's nickname for Emma being Alberta, or Finn's nickname in one episode being the Battle Axe from Halifax. There's an episode where Reef dresses as a girl to enter a gal's surf competition, and it plays out kinda like the episode of SpongeBob with Patricia. Reef plans to win and prove once and for all guys are better than girls, and we get an extremely creepy moment from Bomber where he asks Girl Reef out on a date and says if she doesn't go on the date, he may just cancel the whole surf competition. Finn even eggs the date on, telling her to take one for the team, which is insane, but after learning that Finn knew this was Reef the whole time, it is pretty funny. I feel like there's a point to be made deep down about the potential harassment and external distractions women may face, even in a profession like surfing, but I also think the episode's a great example of why Finn and Reef don't always work as a couple. As cool as it is having an elite surfing couple, every interaction between them so far has come down to a battle of the sexes. Like, there's a great episode where the two of them go surfing and end up stranded castaways, where Reef actually lets go of his pride and machoism in order to survive, and I really thought the two of them would become an official couple here, but they never really do. I love how they compete, I love how they trash talk, but there's just not enough substance to it all, despite the potential. I do believe if Stoked ever got a third season, Finn and Reef would date, so I don't want to judge the what if too hard, but season 2 has Reef and Lo as a couple, which was kinda awful, but the more I think about it, it kinda makes sense. Like, they can both be kind of airheads. But comparing Lo to Reef actually makes me realize Lo's more than competent, she's just spoiled and loves luxury. Then again, there's an episode where Lo calls in a bomb threat on the hotel to get her mom to stop hanging out with them. They do the same episode with Reef's mom hanging out and embarrassing him, and the episodes follow such a similar path, it's kinda crazy. The kids get embarrassed, only to tell the mom off for being embarrassing, and then they apologize and say they were both wrong or something. I don't really like these episodes because they really fail to capture the emotion of it all or the mom's point of view. Like, why is Reef's mom hanging out with her friends in the first place? She embarrasses him, revealing that Reef's name is actually Leslie, and starts dating the Kahuna, but what motivates her? We can infer she's a single mom, but I'd love to know more about Reef's childhood here. I've read comments speculating Reef's sexism and sometimes feminine personality traits could be a product of this upbringing somehow, but the show never really scrapes beyond the surface while setting up tons of potential everywhere. As much as everyone seems to hate their jobs, there's a few episodes about the staff losing their jobs, and you think they'd be happy, but they're really not, and it really solidifies them as one big happy family that kinda needs each other for me. Though the reasons why it doesn't work out are a little weird, like the finale of season 1 has Lo being let back into the penthouse by her father, and she has a heartfelt goodbye with the Stoked crew where she says she'll still be their friend. And while you might expect Lo to not care anymore, like she is pretty selfish throughout the show, it's actually Emma who acts pretty rude here, telling Lo the party that night is for staff only, and if Lo goes it'd be kinda weird. I guess I can kinda see where Emma's coming from if it was like a place of jealousy, but we never really get a direct reason for this. Emma just generally apologizes. I do appreciate that Lo calls up one of her rich friends who wants to go fly to New York for a shopping spree, but Lo wants to have a bonfire on the beach, and her friend just leaves. Like, Lo's become a total grom here. The plot of the episode revolves around a James Bond-esque spy mission the surfers have to pull off because there's a group of Gulf islands on the ocean blocking all the waves for the resort. These Gulf islands belong to Lo's father's rival, Captain John, and he's a fun antagonist throughout the show. Also, I like the clam mascot Captain Ron has, but he's always looked uncanny to me, like he's a little too realistic or something. It's creepy. I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
They've been competing since I was little at everything. Tennis, swimming, the stock market, how many kids they have.
That's why we had George.
That's gotta be child abuse. They save the waves and in turn the resort by getting these jet skis and ruining the Gulf Island experience, and Lo takes the blame for renting the jet skis, being punished into taking her job back. We also have an episode where Bomber takes some time off work, but he's just really bored and in a way doesn't really know how to have fun. It ends with Bomber taking his job back and saying stress, and in turn the job is his life. They have so many chances to make Bomber a cool character despite being dorky and obsessed with his job. But man, the amount of times he just doesn't pay the crew for overtime and stuff, or pays them in peanuts, I'm mad on behalf of the employees. You know, they really need to start a union or something. One of the last episodes of season 2 actually has the Stoked crew starting a union, which is hilarious. And no, it's not to ensure they have proper working hours or getting paid in cash instead of airline food, but it's to ensure they have proper water, electricity, and pest control in the staff dorms. Those are all actually reasonable requests, if not just basic necessities, and Bomber laughs and says no. Like, obviously if he said yes, there'd be no episode, but it just irks me why Bomber would say no and take pleasure in this holdout. Even if he said something like they can't afford to do it, or it's Ridgemount's decision, not his, Bomber comes off more as cruel and unusual, but I guess we're supposed to kind of feel he's lame, you know? So now that I've kind of jumped sporadically through some of the highlights of the series, I want to take some time to talk about the finale, Gromfest. So this competition has been hyped throughout the entire show, even from the very first episode, so it's really cool to see it finally shown here. Broseph has always been against competitive surfing and feels that it takes away from the art of it, but Reef antagonizes everyone with his trash talk, which causes Broseph to enter. Also, Emma has her own rivalry with this random gal who gets mad at her for getting in her way. Reef pulls off some awesome tricks, like fist bumping a wave, but crashes into Lo's promotional motorboat, sinking into the water where he's trapped by his hair. Finn manages to save Reef by pulling him out of the water, ripping out his hair, and Reef cries, wishing he was left to drown instead, because he loves his hair more than life itself. We go into the final day with Reef failing to regain his balance, equating his hair to a cat's whiskers. This causes Reef and Finn to break up, and like, of all things, I love that it's over Reef's obsession with his hair, which is something we all already knew about. There was a time Reef said Finn was hot while dating Lo, and when Lo got mad, he said she was like probably the second or third prettiest girl at the beach at least. But no, it's Reef's hair that was the final straw here. Broseph tries to help Reef by giving him a hair cream, but it's actually a hair removal cream, and it actually works out, because everyone kind of digs the cue ball look. And you know, you really do gotta shave it off. It's all or nothing. You can't just have the sides like an old man. So we have the finals for the guys and gals. Finn still struggles with the pain from her leg cramps, but finds motivation by yelling at Reef, getting angry at him, and finding the motivation to win. On the guys' half, Broseph ends up beating Reef by getting a lot of extra air on his trick with a giant burp because in his studying for the competition, he misread the best food to eat for surf training was an advertisement for beaver Tails. And man, I really want a beaver tail. So the Gromfest ends with Broseph and Finn winning, which is pretty cool. I do kinda wish it wasn't split between genders, because a lot of the hype surrounding it was finally seeing who was the stronger surfer between Finn and Reef. I think it's a good episode, but a lot of people find it a bit disappointing as a finale to the show, with a lot of stuff still unanswered, like will Reef and Finn get together? Will we ever see what Wipeout looks like under the costume? Is Emma gonna date Ty or Johnny? But I personally think this was a fine spot to end on, and I didn't find myself too crazy about the second season compared to the first. It was a great show and holds such a special place to me, but it's nice it didn't stretch itself too thin. As of making this video, the whole series is on YouTube, so you should check it out sometime and let me know what you think. Tell me your favorite character or episode. My favorite character is Finn, and I'd say my favorite episode outside the first few is episode 10, Reef, Broseph, and Emma's Totally Stupid Adventure, where they take Bomber's golf cart into town to get beaver tails, while Finn deals with her date, who has the infamous messy room. There's just so much going on throughout the episode, there wasn't a second of downtime, like they're driving the bus through the forest. I wanted to give a quick thanks to my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters, like A Sore Thumb, Jeffrey R, Metal Cactus, Buggy, Luther, Flinley, Richard M, Jack C, and Paul H. Thanks so much for your help and support in letting me make these videos, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next week. Alright, bye.